back with another weekly watch list. Going to make this as short and sweet as possible. Couple of names that are going to be high on the watch list as I think they can make massive moves going into the next couple of days, if not the next 2 weeks, going into about that September 19th timeframe, which is going to be monthly options expiration, aka OPEX. So the first one that's going to be on the list is going to be UNH. I have it drawn right here as two logical paths that I can see coming in the next couple of days or weeks. And I have it sketched out as I'm thinking that we either try to make a runaway in which we get a pullback to start the week and then we just start to trend to the upside and get a couple of days where we just start making higher highs and we start to kind of expand into this gap fill up here. This is going to be high on watch, especially considering this big volume shelf we've been building. A trade idea for UNH would be the 912 expiration calls, and I'm looking at around the 320 to 340 strike price on those calls, if not going out even to the 340 to 375 calls for the 919 expiration. So that would be the first thing that I'm going to be watching is UNH because I do think that this can get up into this gap fill prior to the end of September, the end of the quarter. If that's the case, this is going to be a $20 to $30 move. Next chart we have, it's going to be APP. This is high on the watch list as it has been going back to the last video that I made. We were trading around here. I even mentioned it in the free Discord. I posted it on Twitter as well that I was looking for this move up into new all-time high and that I thought this could be included in SPY. And it was, along with Hood, which is going to be another name that's going to be high on watch. I personally swung calls on both of these names, along with a couple other names that we might discuss. But this one, as long as we can remain above the all-time high, or at least this week's high, basically, which is going to be around that 511 mark, if we can start to hold this general area, I do think this is going to shape up for a much bigger move. So if that's the case, this can get up to around that 600 area. Going into Monday, there might be a sell-off, kind of like AVGO had on Friday. If you want to go look at that daily chart, that could be the potential that comes before a move higher. I would assume some kind of profit taking is going to come on this name. Regardless, I do think this is going to be a name that starts to outperform, especially if the market still stays as resilient as it has been, which we have been making new all-time highs on SPY. Haven't quite got that new all-time high on QQQ. The next one is going to be MDB. I mentioned this as well on the last video, and it's been making higher prices ever since. We made a push up into this gap fill on Friday, and if this general area holds basically the lows of these candles, even if we get a pullback down to here in the next couple of weeks, I still think this could make a move even higher. So if we just start to kind of expand to the upside, that's great. I'm looking long to start the week basically, but we might try to push up and then kind of fail and kind of come down here, maybe do something like that and then get that bigger move up. So regardless on how this plays out, MDB is going to be one that I do think is going to get a much bigger move, especially because there's just so much room to the upside. And some of these cyber names like PANW, PANW, then you have names like CRM, and one of my other favorites besides MDB, which is going to be Snow. So keep all of these on watch going into the end of the month, basically, because I do think that semiconductors and cyber names, they're going to play a big role in the next big move in the overall market. The next name I have on watch is going to be TSM. I actually posted this in the free Discord, but this is basically what I'm looking at. This has been building and it's been flagging. We kind of got a little bit of a flag breakout on Friday, which is great. If this can remain above the high of this bar right here, then I am looking for a new all-time high. And I have these lines up here because they're basically my first targets once this gets above new all-time high. So either this is going to hold and try to get some kind of expansion, or this might try to pull back early in the week and kind of back test before we get that bigger move up. Regardless, as long as this is able to hold this 232 or the 223.4 level, I do think this is going to expand to the upside. These contracts are extremely cheap, so I'm looking at the 919 calls, maybe go out to the 245 to 260, maybe even a bit higher if you go farther out in time. This does have earnings mid-October, so potentially even looking for calls around that October 10th expiration to try to catch any kind of run up going into earnings. That could be another good trade idea potentially, as long as this is able to hold. It is making these higher lows on the daily chart. And like I said, I do think semiconductors are going to start moving as a whole. So definitely keep this on watch. Another one that I'm going to be watching is going to be MU, also in the semiconductors. This one made a fresh high on Friday. Going to kind of watch this one. I don't want to chase it at the highs right here, but if it can pull back, hold that 122 to 118 area, kind of come down in here in this area, and then get a bigger move up, this could be one to look for those longer dated swings on, maybe look for about 2 to 3 weeks out. Of course, we do have earnings coming up in the next 2 weeks, so that is going to play a big role on the next directional move on this. I do think this has a good chance of getting that new all-time high. Granted, the earnings aren't going to just decimate this setup and it kind of gaps down in this area, back down towards 100 to 120 area. So definitely keeping this one on watch. Next one is going to be Tesla. Tesla has been building for quite some time now. I've been updating this one in the premium chat, and this one I do think is going to make a massive move. The way that this is building, it should in theory resolve to the upside. So if that doesn't occur, there's a much bigger short coming where if this tries to push up like this, it does not hold, it does not continue higher. There's probably going to be a move like something like that where it drops about a good $50 to $80 or so because it's not able to continue higher. The move that you see over here back in November of 2024, that's generally speaking the kind of move that I'm expecting once this finally gets a resolution from here. So keep this one on watch along with the names from the last video that I posted as well. We have Appl, Zoom, and Roku. Not going to go over their charts, but keep those on watch along with some notable names like Home Depot, Reddit, and Amazon. Those are some of my favorites going into the end of the month, or at least into that OPEX timeframe. So hopefully this helps, and I'll see you guys in the next video.